I was halfway through my second glass of whiskey at Tom's place when Sophie's voice broke through the night, low, urgent, and trembling. "Dad, don't come home yet." For a second, I thought I misheard. The TV hummed in the corner, some football game Tom had on low. The smell of cigar smoke hung in the air, thick enough to sting my eyes. But Sophie's voice cut through it, a whisper so sharp it felt like it carved straight into me. "Dad." She tried again, her breath ragged, like she was hiding under a blanket. Then came the sound of static, and something else, like another set of lungs, breathing too close to the phone. My hand clenched so hard on the glass that the ice rattled. "Sophie? What's going on? Where are you? Don't come home. Please." There. The line cut. Dead silence. The kind that presses against your ears until you hear your own pulse pounding. "Dad?" Tom asked, his brow wrinkling. He was leaning back on the sofa, pretending to be casual, but his foot tapped against the carpet. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer. My thumb slammed redial, straight to voicemail. Sophie's voice was cheerful there, light and careless. "Hey, it's Sophie. Leave a message." My stomach turned. The contrast between that normal recording and the panic in her whisper made bile rise in my throat. I tried again. Same result. I fired off a text. "Are you okay? Where are you?" Seconds later, a vibration buzzed against my palm. A reply. "They're watching me." My mouth went dry. "Jesus Christ," I muttered. Tom leaned forward now, elbows on his knees. "Henry, what's happening?" I didn't want to tell him yet. Something about his face. It was too calm, too curious, not worried enough. But I muttered, "It's Sophie. Something's wrong." Another buzz. I stared at the screen so long my eyes blurred. The warmth of Tom's house, the crackling fireplace, the soft hum of the TV, turned suffocating. The walls felt closer, pressing in. My thoughts scattered. Why wouldn't I come home? Who was with her? I called again. Straight to voicemail. Tom put his glass down, slow. "Maybe it's a prank. You know kids. She's 23, Tom. She doesn't prank like this." My voice cracked. I didn't care. Buzz. Another text. "Dad, I love you. Please stay away." That one broke me. Because Sophie doesn't say those words lightly. She's like me, walls, silence, distance. For her to text that meant she thought she might not say it again. My hands shook. The glass of whiskey toppled on the table, spilling amber across the wood. I didn't notice. Tom's eyes followed me like a hawk as I stood, grabbed my coat. His mouth tightened. "Henry, wait. Don't drive like this. You've been drinking." "I'm fine," I snapped, too sharp, too defensive. He raised his palms, but his eyes darted, nervous, calculating. I clocked it. Something in me filed it away. The house suddenly felt too warm, the fire's heat oppressive, the ticking clock too loud. My chest pounded like a drum. I needed to get home. I was halfway to the door when my phone buzzed again. One more text. I froze before I even looked. My gut already knew. They're already here. My phone buzzed one more time, and the final text froze my blood. They're already here. The front door was open, swaying slightly as if breathing. The porch light above me flickered, buzzing faintly like an insect caught in glass. The night was too still. No wind, no distant cars, not even the usual hum of crickets. My driveway felt like a stage, and I was the only actor too dumb to walk off. I pushed the door open with 2 fingers. It groaned, then stopped halfway, leaving a shadowed gap as though the house itself wanted to watch me decide. "Sophie?" My voice cracked. The silence that answered wasn't the kind of quiet that comes after bedtime. It was heavy, deliberate. Her jacket was on the floor, crumpled, as if dropped mid-step. I picked it up. The denim was still warm. I moved inside. The smell of her perfume clung faintly to the air, sweet, familiar, but underneath it was something sour. Damp wood, stale breath. The lamp by the couch was on. Not how I left it. I glanced at the charger in the wall. Her phone cord still curled neatly, waiting. Sophie never went anywhere without it. Something inside me twisted. The hardwood creaked under my shoes as I crossed the living room. Every sound felt amplified. The leather squeak of the couch as I brushed past, the faint rattle of a picture frame on the wall. I whispered her name again, softer, like I didn't want the house to hear. And then, above me, a sharp, distinct groan of floorboards. Someone moving. My chest tightened. I turned toward the stairs. My hand hovered on the banister, slick with sweat. That's when I caught myself whispering, "You're a fool, Henry. If someone's in this house, they already know you're here." I forced my legs up one step. The wood popped under my weight. My heartbeat filled my ears, drowning out everything else. Another step. Another groan. I swallowed hard, the taste of copper in my mouth. I gripped the phone in my pocket so tightly I thought the glass would crack. Dad? It wasn't from the stairs. It wasn't from my phone. It was faint. Behind me? Ahead? The air seemed to carry it like smoke. I froze, my knuckles white on the railing. Dad? Softer now. A whisper threaded with breath. I forced myself higher. The hallway stretched out at the top, lit only by a single lamp down the far end. Yellow, flickering. Shadows pulsed in the corners, stretched. Her hair was loose, hanging over her shoulders. She didn't move when the floor creaked under me. Didn't move when I whispered her name. Sophie. Her arms hung limp at her sides. The air felt wrong, stale, pressing against my skin, as if the house itself leaned closer. My throat closed. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs carried me forward anyway. The closer I got, the more I realized how wrong the moment was. Her reflection in the window didn't match her stance. It seemed slower, off by a fraction, like two versions of her, one chasing the other. A bead of sweat slid down my temple. My hand trembled as I reached toward her shoulder. That's when her head tilted, just slightly, a jerky, unnatural twitch. She still didn't turn. And then, in the half-lit hallway, I saw Sophie, standing perfectly still, facing the window. When she turned, her smile didn't belong to my daughter. Her lips curled too slow, stretched too wide, teeth showing in a way Sophie never smiled. Her eyes, hollow, reflecting nothing, locked onto me like she'd been waiting for this moment. You should have stayed away, Henry. The voice rattled. It was hers, but not hers, an echo that seemed to come from behind the walls as much as her mouth. My knees weakened. The air turned sharp, metallic. And then, Dad! I spun. Behind me, Sophie staggered out of the shadowed hallway, pale as if her blood had drained out. Her knees buckled, catching herself against the wall. Her breath hitched. Dad! She whispered again, trembling. My mind snapped into a vice. Two Sophies, 1 inches from the window, one gasping behind me. The one by the window tilted her head, slow and mechanical, like a marionette pulled by the wrong strings. Then, mocking, perfect, she let out a soft sob. My daughter's sob. I froze. Daddy! The imposter's voice cracked, mimicking the exact tremble Sophie always had when she cried as a child. Behind me, the real Sophie whimpered. I turned my head back and forth, the way you do in a nightmare where you can't choose which way to run. Tell me something only she'd know, I demanded, my voice breaking. The Sophie by the window grinned wider. Like the time you dropped her bike on the gravel, and she skinned her knees. The blood looked so pretty. I flinched. Behind me, the pale Sophie shook her head violently. Her hair stuck to her wet cheeks. No! That's wrong. You caught me before I fell. You carried me all the way home. The imposter giggled, high, shrill. My stomach nodded. The floor creaked, bare feet stepping forward. With every step, the smell hit me stronger. Not perfume. Not shampoo. Rot. Damp, sour, like meat left in the sun. Don't. I raised a hand without realizing it. The imposter stopped mid-step. Her head twitched again. I could feel the real Sophie's breathe behind me, fast and shallow, hot against my neck. Dad, she begged. Please don't listen to her. Don't look at her. But I couldn't not look. My phone buzzed. The sound made me flinch like a gunshot. I yanked it out. A message lit the screen. From Sophie's number. It's not me, Dad. My hands shook. I nearly dropped it. I looked at the pale Sophie behind me. She stared at the phone, horrified. I didn't send that. The imposter giggled again. A perfect mirror of my daughter's laugh when she was 6 years old. I thought I'd vomit. Henry. The imposter said my name this time, not Dad. Her teeth shone, slick and too long. She stepped forward again. The boards moaned under her weight. Don't trust her, the real Sophie choked out. The imposter echoed instantly. Don't trust her. Two voices at once, one desperate, one mocking. My head spun so fast it felt like my skull might crack from the inside. I shoved the phone in my pocket and planted my feet. My palms were slick, but I forced them into fists. The imposter stopped. Her smile didn't falter, but her nostrils flared like she was smelling me, like a predator. Behind me, Sophie gripped my arm, fingers trembling. Dad, please, I'm real. You know me. Please. I searched her face, freckles, wet lashes, the tiny scar above her eyebrow. And yet, the imposter's voice slithered into my ear again. You're looking at her scar? I can make one too. She dragged her nail across her brow slow. Thin skin split, but no blood flowed. Just black. The air stank now. Iron, mildew, rot? I gagged. My daughter's voice broke. Don't believe her. Don't believe her. The impostor echoed, mocking. Their voices tangled, my ears unable to tell which was which anymore. I couldn't breathe. My pulse throbbed in my temples. The lamp at the end of the hall flickered once, twice. For a fraction of a second, both Sophie's blurred. Two shapes leaning forward, mouths open, waiting. I blinked. My eyes stung. Then, both screamed. Don't trust her! Two voices, identical, shattering the hallway. The walls shook with it. My knees nearly buckled. And I couldn't tell, God help me, I couldn't tell which voice belonged to my daughter. Both Sophies screamed at once. Don't trust her! And I couldn't tell which voice belonged to my daughter. I thought the worst betrayal I'd ever face was my wife's illness taking her from us. I was wrong. For years I told myself that was the moment everything cracked. When her hair fell out in clumps, when the house smelled of antiseptic instead of dinners, when Sophie stopped laughing because the sound reminded her too much of her mother. But standing there in that half-lit hallway, two versions of my daughter crying for me to choose, I realized I'd been wrong all along. The real betrayal was here. My own doubt. Dad, it's me. The Sophie behind me begged. Her voice shook like thin glass about to shatter. No, it's me. The one by the window countered, her tone warm, honeyed, almost soothing. She stepped closer. You remember the night she died, don't you? How I curled into your lap and you promised we'd survive together. My throat closed. My wife's last night, something sacred, private, slid off her tongue like it belonged to her. Behind me, the trembling Sophie gasped. Dad, don't listen, she wasn't there. I was asleep. You never told me she was gone until morning. I staggered a step back, my hand gripping the wall so hard I felt the wallpaper peel under my nails. Which memory was mine? Which was twisted? Both Sophies stared at me, one with hollow, unblinking eyes, the other with tears, desperate and human. But my heart wouldn't listen. Guilt gnawed through me. Please, I whispered. My tongue felt dry, sandpaper dragging against my teeth. Don't do this to me. The impostor's smile softened, a calculated kindness. Her lashes fluttered like Sophie's always did when she wanted something as a child. You pulled me out of bed at midnight, remember? You told me she was with the angels. You said we had to be strong together. Her eyes shimmered, almost wet, almost real. Behind me, Sophie's nails dug into my arm. That's not true. You didn't know how to say it. You just sat at the table, crying. I came down and found you. You couldn't even look at me. My chest convulsed. The shame of it hit me fresh, like the night had just happened. Because she was right. I had failed her. I had sat there with my face buried in my hands, choking on sobs, unable to lift my head when she asked what was wrong. I never wanted to remember that moment again. And now it stood in front of me, weaponized. My voice broke. I don't even know. Choose me, Dad, the impostor whispered. She tilted her head, an echo of Sophie at age 6 when she'd beg for one more story before bed. Please, Dad, the real Sophie sobbed. Her nails trembled against my skin. It's me. You know it's me. Don't let her trick you. The air was thick with their voices, both so close, pressing into my ears until I couldn't breathe. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to hear my own memory, trying to remember the sound of Sophie's real laugh, the way her mother's perfume had clung to her hair, the weight of her tiny arms around my neck. But all I felt was guilt, years of distance, years of retreat. I'd left her alone with her grief, retreating into my own silence, convincing myself she didn't need me. And now I was paying the price. My hands shook violently. I could barely clench them into fists. The hallway spun like I was on the deck of a ship in a storm. Two Sophies. Two versions of the truth. One poisoned, one begging. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my chest. Then, clear as a gunshot through the heavy silence, Henry, a man's voice, deep, familiar. It echoed through the house, and my blood froze. Because I hadn't called Tom. Then Tom's voice echoed through the house, though I never called him. Hearing Tom's voice in my house was like hearing laughter at a funeral. Wrong, impossible, sickening. I turned slow, heavy, like my neck was locked in rust. And there he was, at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on the banister, his body angled just enough to look casual. But his smile was stretched too wide, his teeth too white against the dim hallway. His eyes, God, his eyes, looked blacker than the stairwell shadows. Henry, he said, warm, like we just bumped into each other at the store. You look like you've seen a ghost. I couldn't breathe. My fists clenched at my sides. What are you doing here? He chuckled, slow and low, as though he were trying not to spook me. Funny thing, he said, taking one step up. The wood groaned under his weight. I heard Sophie calling. My stomach dropped. He shouldn't have known that. Tom, I said, my voice too sharp, betraying me. You don't belong here. Leave. But he didn't move. He tilted his head slightly, a tic I remembered from years ago, whenever he lied to his wife during poker nights. The smile never wavered, but his foot tapped once against the wood before he stilled it. Henry, he sighed, shaking his head like a teacher disappointed in a child. Always so defensive. You forget, I know Sophie. Better than you think. The floor above me creaked. Both Sophies were silent now, as if listening. My throat dried out. What the hell are you talking about? Tom leaned his elbow against the banister. Casual performance. But his knuckles were bone white, gripping tighter than he wanted me to see. Think back, he said softly. All those nights I stopped by. All those little questions I asked about her. You never wondered why? And I did. I remembered. His too frequent visits. His eyes lingering a second too long when Sophie spoke. The way he'd always steer conversations back to her. I shoved the memory away, shaking my head. You're sick, I spat. His grin twitched, the mask slipping. Then he straightened, shoulders squared, no longer pretending. Sick? His voice hardened, like metal striking metal. No. Honest. See, you don't know her like I do. You don't know what she tells me. My chest tightened. Lies. He barked a laugh, sharp, humorless. You think so? She told me things, Henry. Things she never told you. About how she blamed you for her mother. About how she wished you'd been the one to die instead. The words sank like stones in my gut. Behind me, a sob cracked the silence. I staggered back a step, shaking my head. I don't need to, Henry. She did that herself. You pushed her away. You left her to rot in her grief. And I was there. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. His smile was gone now, only raw hunger left. You really want to know who Sophie runs to when she cries? He whispered. The words sliced through me. For a second I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I remembered the nights Sophie didn't come home until late, her vague excuses, my decision not to pry because I was too exhausted. No. Not Tom. Please, God, not Tom. My nails dug crescents into my palms. You're lying, I forced out. Tom tilted his head again, that damn tick, but his smile returned, tighter this time. Am I? Or do you just not want it to be true? The stairs creaked again. He was halfway up now. The air felt thicker, hot, pressing against my chest. I wanted to scream for Sophie, to tell her to run, but which Sophie? Get out, I growled. My voice shook, but I forced it louder. Now. Tom stopped, leaning forward just enough that I could feel the heat of his breath rising toward me. His eyes glittered like wet stone. Then he whispered, so close the words burned against my ear. Robert always said you'd break when it mattered. Tom leaned close, his breath hot against my skin. Robert always said you'd break when it mattered. The mention of Robert's name was a knife twisting in old wounds. My knees buckled against the stair, and I gripped the banisters so hard I thought the wood would snap. Robert, my late wife's brother. The man who hated me long before the cancer took her. Hearing Tom spit his name in my house felt like the past had reached up through the floorboards and dragged me under. Don't. My voice cracked. I forced it stronger. Don't you say his name. Tom's grin widened, thin and cruel. His pupils glistened, a predator savoring blood. Oh, I'll say it. Robert, Robert, Robert. His tone rose like a chant. He knew you'd crack. He told me once, Henry doesn't know how to protect her. He never did. My throat burned. I saw flashes, not of tonight, but years ago. Robert standing in our kitchen, fists pressed against the counter, hissing at me while my wife lay asleep in the bedroom. You don't feed her right. You leave her alone too much. Sophie deserves better. And me, too proud, too exhausted, snapping back. She's my daughter, not yours. The way his eyes had narrowed, the way he'd said, then God help her. Tom's foot creaked another step closer. I could see sweat beating at his temples now, though he smiled like a saint. Funny thing, Henry. Robert saw this coming. He said a reckoning was waiting for you. Guess he was right. My chest throbbed. Rage cut through fear, hot and raw. Robert's dead. Is he? Tom's eyebrow twitched, a tremor he tried to hide. Or did he leave a little insurance behind? A whisper tugged at my sleeve. Dad? Sophie. The one still clutching me, her eyes wide, her voice a broken reed. Robert warned me, she whispered, her breath trembling against my ear. Weeks ago. He said it was coming. That a reckoning was coming for us. Her fingers dug into my arm. I didn't tell you. I thought it was just him being him. I wanted to scream. Wanted to rip Tom down the stairs, tear the smirk off his face, but my legs felt cemented. I locked eyes with him. What did Robert promise you? Tom chuckled, but the sound was strained. His shoulders twitched once before settling. Promise? No. He didn't promise, he taught. My vision swam. I didn't know if it was rage or grief, but the hall tilted. Behind Tom's words I heard Robert again. You'll never be enough for her. I had buried those words for years, buried them with my wife. Now they crawled back out, whispered in Tom's voice. Dad? Sophie tugged again, urgent. We have to go. Please, he's not alone. The way she said it chilled me. Not alone. The shadows stretched longer down the hallway. The house itself seemed to sink colder, as though someone had opened a cellar door. I snapped my head back to Tom. Where is he? My voice was raw. Tom smirked, but the skin at the corners of his mouth twitched. His hand tapped the railing once before he stilled it. Where do you think? He whispered. He's been waiting. For a moment, silence fell. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. I heard my pulse pounding in my skull, the creak of the lamp cord swaying faintly in the hallway, Sophie's sharp inhales as she tried to keep from sobbing. Then I moved, shoving Sophie behind me. I stepped down 2 stairs, closing the gap. You tell Robert, I spat. If he set foot in my house, I'll. The words stopped cold, because through the window at the end of the hall, in the pale wash of the porch light, I saw him, a figure standing motionless in the yard, tall, still, watching. Robert. From the upstairs window, I saw a figure standing in the yard, Robert. His silhouette didn't move, but I swore I could hear him breathing through the glass. At first I thought it was a trick of the street lamp, orange glow bending shadows into a man's shape. But the longer I stared, the more it sharpened into him. Robert. The man who haunted every fight I'd ever had with my wife. The man who swore I wasn't fit to raise Sophie. Now he stood in my yard like a gravestone come to life. Dad, don't. Sophie's nails dug into my arm. Her breath came fast, shallow, panicked. Don't open it. Please. Her voice was shaking so badly it felt like she was speaking for both of us. Behind me, the other Sophie laughed. Not a child's laugh. Not her laugh. It was wet, raspy, like air forcing through a cracked pipe. Oh, Henry, she crooned, voice wobbling between too high and too low. You always wanted to keep the monsters outside. But the rot, it's already here. Her giggles echoed in the hall, sticky as tar. The smell hit next, burning, sharp, metallic, acrid. My nose filled with it, but when I spun, there was no smoke, no flame. Just walls that looked darker than they should, like something had stained them from the inside. I swallowed bile. What is this? Tom chuckled from the stairwell, his teeth catching the lamplight. Nightmares don't need fire, Henry. They burn on guilt alone. Outside, Robert didn't move. Not a twitch. Not a breath of wind stirred his coat. But still, I swore I heard it, the faint, steady rhythm of lungs pulling air, as though the glass itself carried the sound into me. Every inhale louder than my pulse. Every exhale heavier than my fear. Dad, Sophie whispered, her fingers clawing deeper into my sleeve, desperate. He'll get in if you look too long. Don't look at him. I tried to turn away, but his silhouette held me like a hook in the gut. And then, his head tilted, just slightly, enough to make my stomach lurch. He was looking back. I stumbled, dragging Sophie with me, but the imposter Sophie's laughter cut us off. She stood in the hallway, shoulders jerking with each breath, like her body couldn't keep up with her grin. You think she's yours? She rasped, her voice splitting, doubling. She's been his since the day your wife closed her eyes. Her fingers twitched, mimicking claws. My real Sophie sobbed. Stop! Please stop! Her face was pressed into my arm, her voice muffled but raw. I wanted to shield her from all of it. Robert's stillness, Tom's smile, that warped thing pretending to be my daughter, but I couldn't cover it all. I couldn't breathe. The house was too small, too full, the air thick with heat that didn't belong. Tom leaned against the railing, his voice silky, measured. Why fight it, Henry? Robert was right. You were never enough. You'll never be enough. But you can at least surrender gracefully. His eyes gleamed, catching the faint flicker from the street lamp outside. Or you can make it worse for her. The glass rattled. My head snapped back. Robert's silhouette pressed closer, the faint outline of his hand against the windowpane. Not knocking, just resting, like he had all the time in the world. I reached for my phone with shaking fingers, my thumb clumsy, useless. Somehow I got it open. One new text, from an unknown number. It read, "Robert isn't outside. He's already inside." My phone buzzed again, and this time the text read, "Robert isn't outside. He's already inside." My house was no longer mine. It was their stage, and I was the fool stumbling across it. At first, it was the sound. A faint click above me, softer than a breath. I thought it was the heat kicking on, but when I tilted my head I saw it. A black dot, buried in the vent. A camera. My throat clenched so tight I nearly gagged. I staggered back, dragging Sophie with me. The imposter Sophie clapped her hands once, sharp as glass breaking. "Finally! Daddy sees the trick!" Her smile peeled too wide. From her pocket, she pulled out a tiny remote and pressed it. The TV in the living room flickered to life. My stomach dropped. There we were. Sophie, 6 years old, curled on my lap as I read her Charlotte's Web. The recording was grainy, but the audio was clear as day. My voice, my daughter's laughter. "Stop it!" My voice cracked. I hated how weak it sounded. "Turn that off." Tom leaned against the banister, tapping his fingers in rhythm against the wood. "Why? You should be proud, Henry. Look at you, Father of the Year. And all of it caught on tape." He tilted his head, smile tugging just a little too hard at one side. "Robert made sure nothing was lost. Every bedtime story, every argument, every tear." The screen cut again. Now it was Sophie at 12, standing in the kitchen, crying after a fight we'd had. My own voice thundered through the speakers, crueler than I remembered. "You're acting just like her. Just like your mother." Sophie's sobs filled the room. My knees buckled. "Dad?" My real Sophie's voice was small, shaking. "I remember that." Shame lit my chest on fire. The imposter Sophie's giggle rose, jagged and wet. "You told her she wasn't enough. That she was just like the woman you buried. Robert thought that part was beautiful." "Shut up!" My shout ripped from my throat before I could stop it. "That's not what happened. I didn't mean." But the words fell flat. On screen, the younger Sophie crumpled at the table, her hands covering her face, and there I was, storming out of the room. No edits. No forgiveness. Just truth, raw and ugly. I wanted to claw my own skin off. My ribs felt tight, my lungs too small. How long had they been watching? How long had my house been wired like a coffin? Every misplaced cup, every sound I'd brushed off as pipes settling. It wasn't age. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was them. Sophie clutched me, her nails biting deep. "Dad, don't listen to them. Please, that wasn't you." "Not really." Her tears burned into my shirt. Tom descended the last step, slow, deliberate, each creak like a gun cocking. His smile stayed fixed, but sweat glistened at his hairline. "You want to know the truth?" I swallowed hard. My words shook. "Justice for what?" Tom's lips twitched, the first sign of strain cracking through. "For her. For Sophie. For every time you weren't enough." He pointed at the TV, where Sophie's younger face froze mid-sob. "Robert saw you for what you are, a failure. He just wanted the world to see it too." My vision blurred, heat rising up my neck. But through the blur, I caught it, Tom's fingers tapping. Faster now. His smile tugging at the corners strained. He wasn't in control. Not fully. "Dad," Sophie whispered, trembling. "We can fight this. Please, don't let them win." Her voice cracked on win, and the desperation in her tone nearly broke me. I cupped her face, my hands shaking. "I'm not leaving you. Not again. I promise." The imposter Sophie's grin snapped wide. "Promises. Lies wrapped in prettier words. Just like always." She pressed the remote again. The TV hissed, then played a recording so faint I almost didn't recognize it at first. But then the voice sharpened. My voice. Low. Flat. "She'd be better off without me." The sound hollowed me. My stomach lurched. I remembered saying it, late one night, half drunk, talking to the empty kitchen. I thought no one had heard. But Robert had. I staggered to the vent, ripping the grate loose with shaking hands. Inside, wires and a recorder blinked red. I snatched it out. My thumb hit play. And what I heard next nearly made me vomit. It wasn't Robert's voice. It was mine. I gripped the recorder, bow rising in my throat, as my own voice whispered back at me from the dark. "She's not yours. She never was." Hearing my own voice plotting against me shattered something inside. The recorder hissed, then played back words I couldn't recognize, yet the voice was mine. She's weak, just like her mother. She'll never survive without me. The cadence, it was me. And it wasn't. Sophie clutched my sleeve, her face pale, trembling. Dad, no. You never said that. You wouldn't. Her certainty should have been enough. But the sound kept rolling, every syllable like glass underfoot. I should have left her years ago. Should have buried the memory with her mother. I felt my knees give. The imposter Sophie tilted her head, eyes gleaming too wide. Beautiful, isn't it? The way truth always leaks through. Even when you bury it. Her voice warped, higher than lower, until it trembled into my own tone. My own laugh. My laugh. See? She crooned, in perfect mimicry of me. You don't need Robert to destroy yourself. You're doing it already. I staggered back, chest heaving, vision tunneling. My own voice kept coming from the recorder. Confessions, curses, whispered regrets I never made. I wanted to scream, but the air in the room was thick, hot, smothering. It pressed into my skin like damp cloth, every breath harder to pull. Sophie's real voice broke through, raw and desperate. Dad, don't believe it. Look at me. Please, look at me. I dragged my gaze to her, her cheeks streaked with tears, her fingers clinging, nails biting my wrist as though she could anchor me before I drowned. Her eyes, her real eyes, were the only solid thing in the room. Tom shifted, pacing slow circles near the door. His grin was fixed, but his jaw twitched with every step. His hands flexed like he wanted to wring something invisible. Robert warned me this would happen, he muttered, almost to himself. Told me Henry would cling to his lies. Told me the man would fight the mirror. He stopped suddenly, turning that forced smile on me. Tell me, Henry, when you hear yourself damning her, do you still think you're the hero? The imposter Sophie grinned wide, her body twitching with delight. Oh, listen, he's been rehearsing for years. No! My shout cracked the walls. That's not me! But it was my tone, my inflection. I clutched my head, nails digging into my scalp, trying to rip the sound out. Sophie sobbed into my chest. I know you, Dad. I know you. That isn't you. It can't be. Her words came out like lifelines, frantic, pleading. But I could feel her shaking, the way she wanted me to believe as much as she did. The imposter shifted again, and suddenly her voice wasn't hers anymore. It was mine, my exact voice, wrapping the room in poison. I never wanted her. I froze. Sophie froze too, her breath catching sharp. The imposter grinned, shoulders jerking as she wore my voice like a mask. She was always his. Something inside me cracked. Not anger. Not fear. Something colder. If they could steal my daughter's face, her laugh, her voice, and now mine too, then the whole house was their theater. I was just another actor stumbling through lines they fed me. But if it was a play, I didn't have to keep playing the fool. I pressed my lips to Sophie's hair, whispering against her trembling crown. My voice was barely audible under the static and mockery swirling around us. Listen to me. Her wet eyes flicked up. They think this is their stage. I whispered, careful, low. But if they want a performance, I clenched my jaw, forcing calm into the words. We'll give them one. I held Sophie close, my whisper trembling with both terror and resolve. If they want a performance, we'll give them one. I'd been a lawyer long enough to know, the best traps are the ones your enemy doesn't see until it's too late. My palms were slick, sweat dripping down my back, but my voice came out steady. The trick of cross-examination. Never let them see the crack before you spring it. Maybe you're right, I said, letting my tone sag with defeat. Maybe I've been lying to myself all along. The imposter Sophie smirked, teeth flashing too sharp in the dim light. Finally, some honesty. But I didn't look at her. I squeezed Sophie's hand instead, 2 quick pulses, the signal we'd used when she was little to mean hold on. Her eyes widened just slightly. She understood. Tom tilted his head, pacing again. That same fake smile plastered across his face, but the corners twitched every time I didn't meet his gaze. He was waiting for collapse. Good. Let him think it was coming. I staggered toward the dining table, dragging one hand across the wood. You've been watching me for weeks, haven't you? Studying every slip, every stumble, the imposter purred. Oh, Henry, we've done more than watch. Her voice slithered into my wife's tone, low and tender, almost loving. We've been listening. A hum in the vents above my head, the faintest crackle. Microphones, all through the ducts. I made a show of rubbing my temples, muttering like I was unraveling. But inside, my mind snapped into trial mode. Use the evidence against the accuser. I dropped into the chair at the head of the table, the very spot I'd sat 100 times before, lecturing Sophie on homework, on responsibility, on life. Only now the house was wired. My words could be twisted, played back, weaponized, so I'd give them words designed to rot in their mouths. Sophie, I said, making my voice heavy with shame. Maybe I was too hard on you. Maybe Robert was right. Her breath hitched, panic flooding her face. I shot her a sharp glance, just for a second, then tapped twice against my Tom leaned forward, greedy for my collapse. Go on, he urged, his fingers flexing at his sides. Say it. Admit it all. I let my shoulders sag. My words came out in a low mutter, as though I was talking more to myself than them. You want confession? I said. You'll get it. The imposter clapped softly, her palms smacking with a hollow echo. Yes, yes. Finally, Henry. Give us your truth. Her eyes gleamed, too wide, her grin stretched to breaking. But I caught Sophie's stare. She was holding her breath, waiting. I angled my words toward the vent above me, toward the cameras I knew were hidden, toward the microphones feeding their little circus. Robert thinks I don't see the strings he's pulling, I said slowly. But the truth is, I've been pulling my own. The imposter's grin twitched. Just for a second, a hairline crack. Tom frowned, his pacing stuttered. What's that supposed to mean? I smirked. Just a hint, just enough to needle him. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under me. Dust from the old beams above drifted down, my lungs filled with the musty taste of it, grounding me. Every performance needs an audience, I murmured. But it also needs a director. I raised my chin towards Sophie. She straightened, wiping her tears. For the first time that night, there was steel in her eyes. We moved in tandem then. Me rambling nonsense confessions loud enough for the mics. Sophie shifting subtly toward the sideboard where I'd once hidden a spare breaker switch. The imposter tilted her head, suspicion flickering in her two bright eyes. Tom's jaw flexed harder. What are you doing? I slammed my fist down on the table, the crack of it ricocheting through the house. You want confession? Fine. Let the cameras see it. Let Rob. I gestured upward, daring the ceiling. And right on cue, the screens in the living room flickered, static buzzing. One by one, the black voids came alive. And there he was. Robert's face, multiplied on every screen. The cameras flickered alive, and suddenly Robert's face appeared on every screen. My living room became a courtroom, and I was both the accused and the executioner. The screens glared white, then sharpened into Robert's face. His eyes, those same hollow pits I remembered from years ago, bored into me from every angle. The air thickened, hot, electric, like the room itself was waiting for a verdict. Henry, he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. You ruined everything. My sister's life, Sophie's safety, our family's honor. His lips curled into a half-smile, but his left eye twitched, a betrayal of control. I leaned back in my chair, feigning calm, though my heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the hum of the monitors. If you're so sure, Robert, then present your case. Convince me. The imposter Sophie stepped forward, her grin sharp enough to cut. She held up a small remote and clicked. The speakers spat static, then my voice again, low, cold, damning. She was never mine to love. I only kept her because I pitied her. Sophie's nails dug into my sleeve. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her chest heaving like she might vomit. The imposter turned to the screen as if she were a witness offering testimony. Exhibit A, straight from the defendant's mouth. Robert chuckled. Beautiful. Just beautiful. You trained for years in that courtroom, Henry. Now listen to yourself. Tell me, how does it feel when the evidence damns you? My jaw clenched, but I forced my voice steady. Funny thing about evidence, Robert. It's only as strong as the contradictions it survives. I leaned forward, glaring at the screen. Play it again. Slowly. The imposter's grin faltered. And there it was, a slip. Not my cadence, hers, the imposter's. Too smooth between words. No breath catch where mine always was. I snapped my gaze to Sophie. Did you hear it? Her lips trembled, but she nodded. It's not you. Not your rhythm. Robert's smile tightened. His knuckles whitened as his fist clenched just below frame. Objection noted, I said, letting my old courtroom drawl bleed through. But let the jury. I gestured toward the very walls. Hear this? The evidence is tainted. The imposter twitched, her grin struggling to hold. For the first time, her eyes flicked nervously toward the vent. Robert's voice hardened. She's all the proof I need. That girl beside you has lived in your shadow. Ask her. Ask her what your love has really meant. Sophie's body stiffened beside me. Tears streaked her cheeks, but her chin rose. Her voice shook as she spoke, not like a lawyer, not like me, but like a child who'd grown up under the weight of too many battles. You don't get to rewrite who my dad is, she said. Robert scoffed. He's a liar. A tyrant. He made you weak. Her hands balled into fists. No. He made me strong. Because every time he failed, he got back up. Every time I hated him, he stayed. That's more than you ever did for anyone. Her words sliced sharper than anything I could have said. Robert flinched. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound cracked halfway, dry and strangled. The imposter snarled, her body jerking like a puppet's strings had been pulled too hard. Her smile twitched, then split wide again, but the edges wavered. You don't understand, she hissed, her voice glitching between my own and Sophie's. She's mine. Always has been. The lights flickered. I rose from my chair, my voice carrying the force of a closing argument. The mask is slipping, Robert. Your witness is failing. And your case, I spread my arms, letting the room see the trembling imposter, is collapsing under cross-examination. Robert slammed his palm against something out of frame, his face distorted with fury. You think this is theater? You think you've won? His voice thundered through every speaker, vibrating the walls, rattling the glass and the frames. Then let the judgment fall. The imposter's grin snapped back into place, but her eyes were wide, frenzied. Robert screamed, his voice a command ripped from the depths of his hate. End him! And with a guttural snarl, the imposter lunged. Robert screamed through the speakers. End him! And the imposter lunged. Betrayal tastes like bile when it comes from the friend you trusted most. The imposter came at me, but before she reached, Tom shouted, too loud, too raw. Wait! Her body jerked mid-step, like a marionette yanked back by tangled strings. She turned, head cocking, grin dripping with mockery. Oh, Thomas, she purred. Do you finally want your moment? I pushed Sophie behind me, my heart a drumbeat that filled my throat, my eyes fixed on Tom. His mask, smooth, practiced, was cracking. His breath came shallow. His fingers twitched against his thigh, curling, uncurling, the rhythm of a guilty man. You knew, I said, my voice low, heavy. From the beginning you knew Robert was pulling the strings. He flinched. Just a blink. But it was enough. Tom's voice cracked dry as ash. He cleared his throat, but the tremor lingered. Henry, you don't understand. I thought. The imposter laughed, high, shrill, cutting through him like a blade. I didn't want this. He burst out, voice ragged. Robert said it was the only way. That if I helped, he'd fix things. He'd put it all back the way it was. My stomach turned. The bile burned up my throat. Fix things? I spat. By destroying Sophie? By tearing apart what's left of my family? Tom's knees buckled. He sagged against the wall, face crumpling. I didn't know it would go this far. The imposter crouched beside him, her grin feral, eyes glinting with something close to delight. Poor Tom. Always the follower. Always too weak to make a choice. She stroked his cheek with mock tenderness, and he recoiled like her touch seared. Stop, I said, but my voice came out colder than I expected. Don't let her do this to you, Tom. You're letting him, Robert, use you like a pawn. His shoulders shook, his lips parted, a sob tearing free. I never wanted this. Robert's voice exploded through the speakers, venom rattling the frames on the wall. Pathetic. Do you hear yourself, Thomas? Whining. Begging. You disgust me. Tom's head snapped toward the screens, his eyes wide, pleading. Robert, please, I did everything you asked. But Robert only leaned closer to the camera, his sneer stretching. You did nothing. You failed me. The imposter's grin widened, her jaw trembling like she could barely contain the glee. Yes, she whispered, her tone sing-song. Failed, failed, failed. Tom collapsed to his knees, his hands clawed at the air, useless, desperate. Henry, he choked, looking at me through eyes swollen with fear. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. For half a second, I believed him. Saw the boyhood friend who once stood at my side. Saw the cracks of a man eaten alive by someone else's rage. And then Robert gave the order. Blood sprayed against the wood paneling. His hands beat weakly against her, but she was unrelenting, tearing him open like paper. Sophie buried her face in my sleeve, sobbing, trembling so violently I thought she'd collapse. I couldn't move, couldn't stop it. I could only watch as the man who betrayed me was ripped apart before my eyes. The stench hit me next, metallic, hot, thick enough to coat my tongue. The air itself seemed to choke me. Tom's screams grew wet, gurgling, until finally, silence. His body slumped broken, a ruin on the floor. The impostor straightened, drenched in crimson, her grin stretched wider than before. Her eyes locked on me with a hunger that made my blood run cold, and then she smiled. At me. As Tom's screams faded, the impostor turned back to me, smiling wider than ever. I'd lost too much already. My wife, my peace, my trust. I refused to lose Sophie too. The house groaned as if it sensed what was coming. The floorboards creaked under my weight, the lights above buzzing faintly, their glow sickly and pale. Sophie clung to my arm, her nails digging crescents into my skin, her body trembling like a bird caught in a storm. Between us and the exit stood the impostor, drenched in Tom's blood, smile stretched, eyes glowing faint with madness, and from every speaker, Robert roared, "You cannot win, Henry! You couldn't even protect your wife. What makes you think you can protect her?" My breath came hard and shallow, but I forced my body forward, positioning myself between Sophie and the thing that wore her face. "You're right about one thing," I said, voice shaking but growing louder. "I failed before. I failed too many times." The impostor tilted her head, lips twitching, body jerking like a puppet with wires pulled too tight. Robert's laughter filled the walls, rattling frames, vibrating through my ribs. "Admit it! You're nothing but weakness wrapped in a suit of lies." My chest burned. Rage, guilt, love, all boiling at once. I turned my head slightly, just enough for Sophie to hear me. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out anyway. "I love you. More than anything. I should have said it more. I should have been better. But I won't let him take you. Not now. Not ever." Sophie's breath hitched, her grip tightening. Her eyes brimmed, but there was a spark in them, a spark I'd nearly smothered with my silence for years. The impostor staggered. For the first time, the grin faltered. Her face flickered, Sophie's real features bleeding through like light behind a torn curtain. "No," she rasped, voice glitching between my own, Sophie's, and Robert's. "She belongs to me." The house shuddered. The air snapped, hot with static. A bulb overhead burst, showering us with glass. Sophie screamed, clinging to me. I squared my shoulders. "No, she belongs to herself. And she chose me. She chose family." The impostor snarled, body jerking violently. Robert's voice crashed in, louder, furious. "Shut him up! Do it now!" But instead of striking, she faltered again. The edges of her form glitched, lines of static crawling up her skin like cracks in porcelain. That's when I saw it, the cameras, the endless screens still feeding Robert's twisted trial. And I knew what to do. I sprinted to the control panel, Sophie at my heels. My hands shook as I tore through wires, flipping switches. The impostor shrieked, a sound like metal grinding bone, and lurched toward us. I grabbed Sophie, pulling her close, and slammed the final switch. Every screen, the feedback roared, doubling back on itself, a cacophony of her own lies. The impostor screamed. Her body convulsed, jerking uncontrollably. Blood from Tom still dripped off her chin, but now it steamed, sizzling against her skin. She clawed at her face, tearing at her own features as if trying to rip Sophie out of herself. "No!" she screeched. "Don't show me! Don't make me hear!" The walls shook. The ceiling cracked. More bulbs exploded, plunging half the room into strobe-lit chaos. Robert's voice thundered over the chaos, desperate now. "Ignore it! Fight him! Kill them both!" But his rage was smothered by the echoing feedback, by her own voice devouring her. I pressed closer to Sophie, shielding her. My ears rang, but I kept shouting, forcing my words through the storm. "You're not real! You're nothing but his lie! Sophie is mine! She is loved! She is stronger than you, and you can't take her away!" The impostor shrieked, the sound shrill enough to split glass. Her grin tore wider, then snapped, twitching into a grotesque grimace of pain. "Stop!" she howled. "Stop, please!" For one broken second, I swore I saw real Sophie's face staring back at me from inside the glitch, eyes wide, pleading. And then the walls screamed. The house itself roared with collapsing power. Sparks rained from the ceiling, plaster cracked, wires spat fire. The air smelled of ozone and burning flesh. The impostor's form melted, collapsing into shadow, limbs twisting into smoke. She clawed at the floorboards, shrieking as the screens replayed her lie over and over, feeding her into herself. Robert screamed too, his voice breaking through the static, furious, ragged. "No! No, you can't do this to me! You hear me, Henry? You hear me?" The sound cut. Silence. Only the hiss of broken wires, the crackle of fire, Sophie's ragged breathing against my chest. I held her tighter, my whole body trembling, sweat and blood soaking through my clothes. It was over. Or at least, I wanted to believe it was. With a final shriek, the imposter collapsed into shadows, and Robert's scream cut off mid-sentence. The silence after the storm was worse than the screaming. I stood there, lungs burning, Sophie clinging to me like she thought I'd vanish if she let go. The house was unrecognizable, charred walls streaked black, shattered glass littering the floor, the air thick with the acrid bite of smoke. Every breath scraped my throat raw, every sound felt swallowed by the hollow quiet. And yet, beneath the stillness, I swore I could hear something breathing. Sophie's voice was hoarse. "Is it over?" Her words broke the silence like fragile glass, so thin, so easily crushed. I wanted to say yes, to promise her safety, but the truth curdled on my tongue. I tightened my arms around her. "We're alive. That's what matters." Her face pressed into my chest, damp with tears, her body trembling. She didn't argue. Blue and red lights flickered across the ruins minutes later. The sirens came first, wailing in the distance, then growing closer, until the house pulsed with their glow. The front door, or what was left of it, splintered open under the weight of boots. "Police!" a voice barked. I wanted to laugh. What could they possibly do against what had just happened here? Instead, I raised my hands, still shaking, still sticky with Tom's blood that wasn't mine. Sophie peeked out from behind me, her eyes swollen red. 2 officers swept through, weapons drawn. Their eyes darted across the carnage, broken walls, scorched wiring, a body torn apart in the... I almost told him, almost spilled the truth of Robert, the imposter, the nightmare we'd barely survived. But the words died in my throat. What could I possibly say? There was a monster, wearing my daughter's face, tearing through my best friend while my dead rival screamed through the walls. They'd lock me away, call me broken. So instead I said, "Home invasion. Went bad. My friend." My voice cracked. "He didn't make it." The shorter cop eyed me, then Sophie. His mouth tightened. "You need medical attention. Both of you. No hospitals." I snapped too fast. Sophie flinched at my tone. I gentled it, brushing her hair back with my shaking hand. "We just need time. Please." The cops exchanged a look. Doubt flickered in their eyes, but the taller one finally nodded. "We'll file the report, but we'll need statements later," I muttered. When they finally left us in that ruin, Sophie sat on the porch steps, staring out at the flashing lights retreating down the road. Her face looked hollow in the glow, every ounce of childhood stripped away. I sat beside her, my hands raw, my head pounding. The night air was supposed to be fresh, cleansing. Instead it clung heavy, like ash and iron, pressing down on my lungs. I reached for her hand. "We'll get through this, together." Her lips parted like she wanted to believe me. Days blurred after that. Sophie barely spoke, drifting through the house, or what remained of it, like a ghost. I tried to hold her close, tried to piece together something like normal. But sleep eluded me. Every night, I woke drenched in sweat, ears ringing with echoes of her voice. The silence pressed harder than screams ever had. And then, one morning, the doorbell rang. A single envelope lay on the step. No return address. My name scrawled in familiar handwriting that made my stomach lurch. I tore it open with hands that already knew the truth. At the bottom, in neat, deliberate ink, was a signature I thought I'd silence forever. Robert. Days later, a letter arrives, signed by Robert. My hand shook as I opened the envelope, the paper carrying a faint metallic smell like dried blood. The handwriting was unmistakable. Tight, deliberate strokes that seemed to stab into the page. Robert's hand. The sight of it made bile rise in my throat. I unfolded the letter slowly, the edges rough against my fingers. Sophie hovered in the hallway, watching me with wide eyes. She didn't ask what it was. Maybe she already knew. The letter began without greeting. "Henry, congratulations. You won. Or at least, you think you did. I imagine you standing there with Sophie, clutching her like a trophy you barely managed to keep from being stolen. Enjoy your victory. Breathe it in. Because you and I both know it isn't real. You beat an echo, not me." I clenched the paper tighter. My pulse thudded in my ears. Sophie whispered, "What does it say?" I swallowed hard. "It's him." Her face paled, her lips pressing together like she might scream. The words on the page felt alive, crawling under my skin as I read on. "You call that thing an imposter, a monster. But she was only the beginning. There are others, Henry. Others who know you. Others who wear faces better than she ever did. I taught them where to look, who to target, who matters most. I felt Sophie's eyes burning into me, desperate for answers. My voice came out raw. He's trying to scare us. But the truth was, I was scared. The letter continued. You always thought Sophie was your redemption, didn't you? The proof you weren't the coward everyone whispered you were after Lisa died. You can't protect her. You never could. Do you think she didn't notice? How you froze when Tom begged? How you lied to the police? How you still wake at night, sweating, choking on your own fear? She sees it, Henry. Children always do. My grip on the page shook so violently the paper nearly tore. I couldn't let Sophie hear the rest, but my eyes dragged forward anyway, like they had no choice. Lisa used to laugh when you tried to play the hero. Remember that? She'd roll her eyes, whisper to me later how pathetic you looked, puffing your chest. You thought she chose you. She didn't. You were the fallback, the safe option. You never deserved her. And you don't deserve Sophie either. My vision blurred with rage, but the words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to remember Sophie was right there, alive, waiting for me to be strong. I skimmed further down, each line dripping venom. So enjoy your little reprieve. Patch up the walls, pretend you're free. But the war isn't over. Not even close. The next time you hear Sophie's voice, don't assume it's hers. The letter ended with a single word, centered on the page. Always. And beneath it, the name that should have been buried with him. Robert. The room tilted. I folded the letter, crushing it in my fists, as if I could squeeze the poison out of it. Sophie took a step closer, her voice trembling. Dad? I turned to her, forcing my voice steady. It's just words, that's all. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. The weight of his threat pressed against my chest like a blade. She came to me anyway, wrapping her arms around my waist, small but steady. He can't hurt us. Not if we don't let him. Her defiance was a spark in the dark, fragile but real. And in that moment, I realized Robert had been wrong about one thing. I did have something stronger than fear. I had purpose. The last line of Robert's letter burned into my mind. The next time you hear Sophie's voice, don't assume it's hers.